The desert wind howled across the ruins, carrying with it a strange scent of dust, salt, and something older than time itself. Zara pressed the edge of her dupatta to her face as she stepped into the abandoned courtyard of the fortress. Its high walls stood broken, carved by centuries of storms. But to her, it felt alive, like the stones were whispering forgotten secrets. She had not come here as a tourist. She had come with a question that had gnawed at her heart for years. Her father's death had been called an accident, a fall from the cliffs near Gwadar. But Zara had always felt there was more to the story. The last page of his journal, burnt, almost unreadable, had a single word scrawled across it, Mala. That was what had brought her to this ruined fortress, known to locals as Kila-i-Mala. They said it was cursed, abandoned since the Mughal times, where an entire caravan had vanished one night under a moonless sky. But Zara was not afraid of legends. She was afraid of truth. Inside the fortress, shadows danced along the cracked arches. As Zara ran her fingers over the stone, her eyes caught something unusual. A verse etched faintly into the wall. The Arabic calligraphy was faded, but she could make out the words, "And he is with you wherever you are." Zara's heart trembled. The verse her father had recited to her when she was a child. She closed her eyes, whispering it under her breath, and suddenly, she felt it, that presence. A strange stillness, like the fortress was listening to her. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out. It was an unknown number. "Zara Khan?" a deep voice asked. "Yes. You should not have come here." Her breath caught. "Who are you?" But the line went dead. She didn't notice the man standing in the shadows until he stepped forward. His face was partly hidden under the hood of his dark cloak, but his eyes caught hers, piercing, sharp, and strangely familiar. "You're trespassing," he said calmly. "And you're hiding," she shot back. He gave a dry laugh. "I'm guarding." "Guarding what? Stones?" she asked. "Not stones," he replied. "Memories." That night, Zara stayed at the small inn near the ruins. Sleep evaded her. She kept seeing the man's eyes, his words, the way he had walked away without explaining anything more. The next morning, she returned to the fortress. This time, she carried her father's journal. She sat in the courtyard, tracing the torn page with her fingers. Suddenly, the cloaked man appeared again. "You don't stop, do you?" "Not until I find the truth," she said firmly. "Do you know what Mala means?" His silence was answer enough. "Tell me," she insisted. Finally, he spoke. Mala was not a place. It was a woman. Zara's heart skipped. "Who?" "A woman who lived here centuries ago. A secret keeper. They called her the Keeper of Veils. And your father was searching for her story." Zara's world tilted. A woman from centuries ago connected to her father's death? Impossible. And yet, in her heart, she knew she had touched something real. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. The man's eyes softened. "Because I promised your father I would." Her breath caught. "You knew him?" He nodded. "I was with him the night he died." The confession tore through her like lightning. For years she had imagined her father alone, helpless on those cliffs. But this man, he had been there. "Then tell me the truth," Zara whispered, her voice breaking. "Was it an accident?" The man lowered his gaze. "No. He was killed." Silence swallowed the courtyard. Zara's hands trembled as she clutched her father's journal to her chest. "Why?" she choked. "Because he was close," the man replied. "Closer than anyone had ever been to finding the Veil of Ashes." That night, under a crescent moon, the man led her deeper into the fortress. Hidden chambers unfolded like layers of a forgotten book. Carvings on the walls told a story of a caravan that had carried a sacred manuscript, of betrayal, and of a woman named Mala who had vowed to guard it until her last breath. But somewhere in that story, a piece was missing. "Your father believed the manuscript still exists," the man said, "and that Mala's bloodline was still alive." Zara felt a chill run through her. A thought she had never dared to think now whispered in her ear. Was she part of that bloodline? Days turned into nights as Zara and the man, whose name she finally learned was Azan, searched the ruins together. She discovered he was not just a guardian, but a seeker like her. He had once been lost in shadows, until her father had guided him toward faith. Now he carried that promise like a torch. Slowly, trust blossomed between them. He taught her how to read the ancient inscriptions, how to see meaning hidden in symbols. She shared with him the verses her father had taught her, the way he had made faith feel alive. But danger was closing in. One evening, when they returned from the ruins, they found Zara's room at the inn ransacked. The journal was gone. Panic clawed at Zara's chest. "That was all I had of him," she cried. Azan placed a hand on her shoulder. "They think by stealing the journal they can silence the truth. But the truth is not in paper. It's in you." His words burned into her soul. She realized then that this was more than a search for her father's mystery. It was a search for herself. The final night came like a storm. They returned to the deepest chamber of the fortress, following an inscription Azan had once been too afraid to read. It led them to a narrow passage beneath the earth. There, hidden in a stone chest, they found it, the veil of ashes. Not a cloth, not gold, not treasure, but pages, ancient, fragile, glowing faintly under the light of their lantern. As Zara touched them, tears welled in her eyes. It was a manuscript of prayers, supplications, and secrets of faith, words that Mala had guarded for centuries. Suddenly, footsteps thundered behind them. Shadows entered the chamber, men with guns, eyes burning with greed. Azan stepped forward, shielding Zara. "Run," he whispered. "No," she said, gripping the manuscript. "If Mala guarded this with her life, then so will I." What followed was chaos. Gunshots, shouts, dust blinding the air. But through it all, Zara held the manuscript to her chest, whispering the verses she remembered. "And he is with you wherever you are." And in that moment, something miraculous happened. The chamber trembled, dust rained down, and the intruders stumbled, fleeing in terror. Silence fell again. Zara and Azan stood alone, breathless, the manuscript safe in their hands. At dawn, as the first light touched the ruins, Zara opened her father's last letter, tucked in the back of the journal she thought lost, but which Azan had secretly protected. "Zara, if you are reading this, it means you found what I could not. Remember, my daughter, the greatest treasures are not hidden in ruins, but in hearts that carry faith. Mala's veil is not of ashes, it is of truth. Guard it well." Zara pressed the letter to her heart, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, she felt whole. Her father's death was no longer just pain. It was legacy, and beside her stood Azan, not just a guardian of ruins, but perhaps the beginning of something new.